What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round one prop stream for the BMW Championship. Got to get you guys ready for all of your exposure tomorrow. But first off, look at the golf course and the averages from 2021. That's the last time that we saw this golf course in play. We'll also go through the weather report, how that'll impact round number one, as well as some exposure on Underdog and Prize Picks, as well as the sports books with matchups to get you started for this week. But on top of that, I hope you're having a fantastic week so far. Been a while since we had our last live stream together. So first off, hopefully everyone's doing well there. But also let me know when any specific questions that you've got. Those could be bets you want me to deep dive. Those could be process-based questions as well. Whatever the case may be, anything is fair game for the chat. And we are still waiting on some pin locations to drop. So if anyone could let me know in the chat when the PGA Tour drops those, we'll also be able to go through those together. But until then, let's go through some of the things we noticed at 2021. Excuse me there. Let's go through this. So 2021, last time that we saw this course, and we have some of the averages up right here. This is from that event, but we got to keep in mind that they changed up the golf course quite a bit. It was a par 72 back in the day. Now it's going to be just a par 70. So that's going to add in some difficulty, but they also tried to make it harder elsewhere. They tightened up the fairways. They put in brand new greens, which will be a little bit bouncier this year. Also a sub-air system. They are expected to get some rain this evening, but with that sub-air, they're going to be able to suck a lot of that out. Overall, they tightened up the course. They made even more undulations on the greens as well. Everything aimed at making it a much more difficult affair. So it was minus 27 last time. I think it's going to be closer to minus 15 this time around. So a pretty drastic difference on top of the 8 shots that you're getting with that par change. But when we take a look at the averages from that year, these are going to change drastically. So while a lot of times we'll take a look at the year prior or the last time that we're at the golf course and have a pretty good sense for round number one, these aren't really going to give us that. In fact, that minus 2.8 average is going to get at least 2 strokes harder. Some of those other course changes like the tightening of the fairways adds more difficulty on top of that. Your birdie average is going to drop quite a bit as well. The birdie average on the 2 holes that were changed from par 5s to par 4s was like 0.6 to 0.7 per round. So that's over a birdie difference on those 2 holes alone. So maybe closer to a 3.5 birdie average. The bogey average on those holes is going to go up because of that as well. You know, the par average on those holes is now going to be a bogey on, I think it's 12 on the backside. I forget which one on the front side was switched. It might be like 2 or 3. That's going to be a par 4 this time around. But that means the bogey average is probably going to be at least 2.5 per round. When you compare it to 2021, the fairway average, that's probably going to drop too. The course isn't as soupy as what it was in 2021, and they tightened up those landing areas. And then the green average, while the greens aren't that much smaller, they're firmer and faster. They have the sub-air system under them now, but that average is going to drop as well. So I would say that these averages are probably the least accurate that we've ever had from the year prior, but that's what we get at a brand new golf course. But on top of that, worth noting that the weather for round one looks pretty perfect. There's not that much wind to attack. You've got a sub 5 miles an hour wind for a lot of the day. It looks like sub 10 miles an hour wind gust as well. If we go to the HRDPS, you'll see pretty much the same forecast. It does look like there's a slight chance of some rain in the afternoon, but nothing that looks that troublesome. NEM model, a lot of the same, maybe slightly windier, but no sort of rainstorm in that afternoon. GFS model, pretty much the same as the first 2 models, except that that weather, that little bit of a rainstorm that they're calling for, is coming through at 11 a.m. as opposed to the afternoon. But no matter which way that we dice this up, it looks like a pretty ideal set of weather conditions, but it's going to play harder than last time, which is just, it's not normally what we see a lot of times. If we saw this kind of weather forecast, we'd be calling for low scores all day, minus 1.5, minus 2 scoring averages. Not so much when this is long par 70. So we're going to go through the categories. I think it'll give you guys an even better idea of what I'm thinking for value on the board. But it's tough to say ahead of time. It's, you know, a puzzle anytime we get a brand new golf course, especially one that has had this many changes since the last time that we've seen it. And the lines makers have just as much trouble trying to break it down as, you know, you and me out there as well. So it's an equal challenge across the board. I usually keep my exposure a little bit later on slates like this just because of that unknown. As of right now, I've got 2 full slips that have entered, which is pretty light compared to a lot of round one slates. But it's not to say that after we see some play tomorrow morning and we get a sense for how the golf course looks, that I'm not going to add something after we get that data. So, you know, it's one where I'm personally going to be on my toes tomorrow morning, trying to stay on top of that. My Patreon members, of course, do get all the live slips that I'm entering over there. So that is something to join if you guys want to get that exposure tomorrow. But that's probably where the biggest edge is for round number one. Let's catch up on chat, and then we'll go through some props together that I've already entered. What's going on, Rushing? What's going on, Antonio, as well? Yeah, let's take advantage of some disrespectful lines, as you say. And yeah, I'm feeling a lot better as well. So I appreciate the kind words. I started getting over my sickness about a day and a half ago. I still wake up with some phlegm in my throat, but much better than what we had on Saturday, Sunday. He said, you keep hearing people saying that the course is still really easy, yet most of the birdie or better props are at like 3.5. You said you're tempted to go hard on those bets. I haven't heard anyone saying that it's easy, Daniel. I think I saw one person on Twitter I think it was Matt Gannon saying that he thought it was just like 2021. That's the only report that I've seen saying that, because I watched the Scottie Scheffler presser. I don't know if you've seen that quite yet, but you might want to watch it if you haven't already. He said that it looks much more challenging than the year before. Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay were quoted as not saying the exact same thing, but a lot of the same kind of narrative were coming out of their mouths. They said that the renovation was for sure going to be in the harder direction, but they weren't saying that it was like major championship level stuff. The rough really wasn't brought up very much. I think that's where a lot of that narrative was coming from, saying that it's just as easy as 2021. But the other changes to the course, like the shaping of the greens, how firm they're going to be, the sub-air system, there are, the tighter fairways as well. They're not as wide of landing areas as what you had that year, are for sure going to make it a harder course. So I respectfully disagree with a lot of these people. I know one of them's on site and is saying that, but they've been wrong about stuff before, just as I have too, right? Like I could be wrong about this. That wouldn't utterly shock me, right, if I ended up being wrong about it. But I do side towards it being harder. It's everything you heard from them actually changing up the golf course and their actual intentions was to add difficulty. They saw that minus 27 winning score, and I'm sure some of the members were up in arms about it, right? They were probably giving the superintendent absolute shit for that. You never like to see your golf course torn apart. So that probably led to a lot of the changes that they made. And it's not even probably, it did lead to them. That's actually what they mentioned. He said Hall seems very disrespectful for him to be the second birdie percentage guy on tour. So that depends on where the average ends up coming in, Antonio. If the average is going to be about 3.5, then yeah, I would agree, because he's the number 2 player on tour. You'd expect him to make more than the average player, but there's a chance that the birdie average drops below that 3.5 mark. I think it'll probably be about 3.5. That's personally where I have the average. So I would say that that's most likely some value towards the over, but it's not like it's free or anything like that. Like I kind of understand where the sports books are going. But if my memory serves me correctly, I think DraftKings has them like minus 130, minus 135 towards the over. So they tend to agree with that sentiment, right? They have them slightly juiced in that direction, but that's the hesitation, right? This is a brand new course. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And if you go hole by hole, I don't know if you guys have seen the scorecard quite yet. Both par fives are 600 yards. It's going to be wet and rainy the first couple of days, so it's not going to be traveling its normal distance. Those are going to be hard to get to in 2. Your one drivable par 4 that all the players have been talking about this week has so much danger around the green that no one's going to be going for it unless you're an absolute madman. So like probably Victor, Kurt Kitayama go for it, but like 90% of the field is probably going to lay back there. It's not going to be a birdie fest like I think some people think it's going to be. It was in 2021, but that was with the 2 extra par 5s, which, by the way, those par 5s were the short ones. One was 530. Now it's a 530-yard par 4. And the other one was, I think, 550, 560 for 3 of the 4 rounds. And now it's a 510-yard par 4. So it's going to be a little bit different this time around. Just keep that in mind. What's going on? Noah, he said over on pars for Scotty. That worked out for us on Sunday. That's for sure. But I would say I'm not as bullish on the par overs just because we don't have the stat averages from the course. I'm going to give you guys a few other categories that I feel a little bit better about, but the pars really isn't one of the ones I've been attacking so far. He said, thoughts on the rough versus the last 2 weeks. The rough's going to be a little bit less penal than the Bermuda grass rough that they've been playing in, though it's about the same length. It's 3 inches. It's the same length that they've kind of quoted the last couple golf tournaments. Bermuda grass rough is a lot stickier than the bent rye rough that they're going to have this week. The thing that might make it slightly different for tomorrow is that the rough is going to be a little bit wet with some of the rain that they got today. So it could play a little bit more penal the first day or so. But assuming that there's no rain for the rest of the events, it's going to dry out and it's not going to play as difficult as the last few weeks. But that being said, there are other things that make this course difficult on top of that rough. That's just one of the different factors. You saw a bunch of analysts saying that it's just as easy. Patrick McDonald, for example, that works for CBS. Yeah, I don't agree with that. At all. They can say what they want, Jack. And you can bet overs and birdies if you want to trust those people. But I'll trust Scottie Scheffler. I'll trust Justin Thomas. I'll trust Patrick Cantlay over some people that write for golf, and a lot of which are just paid shills to the PGA Tour, right? A lot of those people that work for those companies don't actually play golf. They aren't single-digit handicaps like I am. I play with pro golfers all the time here in Florida, some of which that are on the minor league tour down here and actually making a living playing golf. A lot of those analysts I could beat in my sleep. I could beat with a rental set of clubs on 2 hours of sleep on an overnight flight. So like, it's just not the same when it comes to breaking down these courses and how they play. I do think that it's still going to play under par, like minus 15 winning score. We're not talking about it going from minus 27 to like minus 5 or anything like that. But for them to say that they think it's going to play to like minus 27 again, it's just disingenuous. It's a par 70 as opposed to a par 72. That like by default makes it a shit ton harder. It's a 2-shot harder swing right there. So I'm not sure what the context was. Maybe they meant like outside of the par change, it's going to play the exact same. That's more than likely what they were saying. But even then, they're wrong. It's not going to play that way. The sub-air system on its own is probably at least a half a stroke difference. And then you add on top of it the harder greens and the tighter fairways. That's at least another half a stroke difference right there. Like that guy's just wrong. I can guarantee you that. That's not even like me guessing at this point. I guarantee you it plays at least a little bit harder than what it did the last time around. Most likely significantly harder than what you had in 2021. So yeah, you can throw out the names that you want, man. I'm going to disagree. I don't really care what those people have to say. Vast majority of them don't know what they're talking about. I mean, you can hear that on the broadcast, any sort of, especially the pregame shows that they have on these broadcasts. I mean, the actual announcers themselves half the time don't know what they're talking about, especially when they start talking about betting and that sort of thing, let alone the pregame show for a lot of those ones. I mean, those are even worse than the ones they have on the actual broadcast itself. So again, I'm not somebody that likes to stir up drama, that sort of thing, but it's the truth. A lot of those people are just paid shills. They're in their positions because of their degree, not so much the actual quality of work that they're putting out. And I'll call it what it is. There's a reason why golf is probably the worst covered sport that we have as all of the big sports. I mean, we have no injury report for it. We don't hear from players in between weeks. Those paid actors, those paid shills don't reach out to these players as much as they nearly should. I mean, we don't have like an Adam Schefter. We don't have any of these people in the industry because none of them know what the hell they're talking about. They're not actually connected in the space. So you can't tell that's something I'm very passionate about, something I want to change at some point. I'd like to be some sort of an insider that can actually give that kind of insight. But even me, I'm only as connected as I am. Like I know some of the younger players on tour because I've played with them down here in South Florida, but that's a very small minority at this point. So no one's perfect. Not trying to say that, I could do so much better than all these people, but it's true. A lot of them are just, say shit because they want to generate clicks or if they want to be that outsider or the early guy to something without actually knowing what they're talking about. And it doesn't help Jack, not at all. Xander says, you're looking at Xander outright. So I like Xander this week. I couldn't bite on the outright number though, because for him to be like in the top 3 to 5 of the odds, I'm not sure if he's earned that right. I mean, he is a top 5 player over the last few years, but 2025 standards, he's like number 10 to 15 in terms of actual performance this year. So I would say the outright number was just a little bit too low for me. That's why I personally didn't bet it myself. I'm choosing to play him in DFS instead and go with that angle. But if you want to bet him outright, I've seen worse things. The whole locations were just posted. Okay, we can go through those. He said, oh no, not 27, but just minus 19 because of the relative par differences. That's a little bit more excusable, man, but even then, the guy's just wrong. You don't renovate a golf course and make it harder and have it play the exact same. They spent millions and millions of dollars to do so. It's firmer. They have the sub-air. Yeah, I think that the guy, like I said, just doesn't know what he's talking about. And you can say that about a lot of these paid talking heads around there. A lot of them are just pretty low IQ people, would say. He said, entertainment with a spark of truth. That's exactly it. Edutainment. I like that word that you put through that. That's exactly what it is. They're more entertaining. A lot of them, look good on camera. That's why, they speak better. They've got fluent speech. That's why they're put on a lot of these broadcasts. Not so much because they actually add value from the analyst angle. I mean, the best analysts that we've had in the booth are the people that have the most rough delivery. I mean, I think of Faldo. I mean, the guy is just absolutely hilarious. Or Faraday on that side of things. I mean, the guy is just goofy, but I mean, you can do it one way or the other. Like Faraday does it with the goofiness. He has fun, the entertainment side on it. Then you get the hardcore Faldo analyst where he's breaking stuff down like you've never heard before. I don't know. There's a time and place for both, but the people that pretend to be really educated that aren't really, really drive me nuts. There's so many out there too. And my favorite, not to get too far offline, are the DFS analysts that don't even play DFS, that maybe enter like $25 of lineups a week, and that have whole projection sites and have whole teams of people doing DFS projections for them when they don't even have a clue themselves. They've never taken down a GPP. I've literally never seen them take anything down. I mean, I play in all the big contests. I see them, never seen their logo, never seen their name anywhere towards the top of any of those GPPs, yet they run sites. Those are the ones that drive me even more nuts. I mean, the ones that just like, they act like they know shit and they really don't. There are so many of those in the golf space that I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, there are touts out there that have whole ass YouTubes, thousands and thousands of followers that bet $5 on their outrights. That's comical. That's what people do when they're betting on the shitter in the middle of the night. And they're not even rich people. I'm talking just like random middle collar people that golf is like their 5th or 8th sport they bet on are betting $5 outrights, right? You shouldn't be listening to a tout or anyone out there that's betting $5 outrights. You should not be following DFS projections from somebody that plays $20 in lineups a week. I mean, all the power to you. I guess you take in what you want, but there are so many countless examples of that out there that I'm just so sick and tired of. They act like they know what they're talking about, and if only a lot of people knew the truth, they would stop watching a lot of those people. So I think it's pretty obvious who a lot of them are. Anyone that doesn't show receipts, doesn't show their dollar amount, there's one of two reasons why. One, it's too low. They're entering like $5 on a slip. The other aspect of it is that they're limited and they can't show the amounts, or else the sports books will catch on to them. Very rarely is it the second of the two. That's why I can't post my dollar amounts. You guys would probably notice. I mean, I show it on the live stream all the time that I'm limited to $5 slips on the accounts that you see there. So I can't post my dollar amounts for the actual slips I'm entering, because if I did, then Prize Picks would see that and just instantly go find that account and log it and shut it down, right? Because you're not allowed to have multiple accounts. That's why I can't do that. But 99% of the other people out there, that is not the case. So if they try and say that and they can't show you directly that they're limited, they're bullshitting you, right? I've shown you this hundreds of times. In fact, maybe you're new to the live stream here, people, but we'll make sure that you see this on here because it's so ridiculous. It's going to click 2 random props. It does not matter who we're clicking here. And let's just try to enter for $6. Like, that'd be nice, right? Can we enter a $6 slip? Whenever it loads here, oh, no, we can't, because the maximum is $5 right now. That's the only excuse for entering $5 slips, in my opinion. If you're a tout, if you're entering $5 slips and you're trying to tell people what to do, you're a clown. No other way to put it. We get in the T on the projections. Y'all say it sites. Every site but one of them had bad projections, and the only one that had them right was the one I did not expect to see at the top. It's actually the site that I thought would do the worst out of all of them sites. So this is the crazy part about this. And this includes all the big ones. And yes, the site you're thinking about is included too. Had projections that were way off. It was Stochastic that had them correct. And that's wild. And I like to talk crap about Stochastic sometimes because it feels like their golf projections they don't always spend that much time on. Because a lot of times I check them and they can be off. But they were really good this week. So hats off to them. They were the ones with the best projections in the industry this week. The rest of them, literally every single site that you can possibly think of, I checked them. They were off by at least $500 to $1,000. So pretty rough stuff. That's as much as I'm going to say about it. Is we'll give props to the one site that did it well. Every other one you can think of was on the wrong side of that one. Aubert over Cam Young for the 2-ball at -125. I love an Aubert this week. I bet him outright, so I could get behind that one, man. Especially with Cam Young, it feels like he was putting way over his head for the last month or so. And Aubert's ball striking is really trending in the right direction too, so I could get behind that one. Let's go through a few props I've already entered, though. There's enough ranting for the day over here. So the first prop slip I ended up entering, and this was on the Bet the Number blog, but we're going to go through 2 here together, was an under on Rory McIlroy fairways hit, and then also an over on Justin Rose bogeys. So I got this for 2.85x. I believe it's a slightly lower payout now. Yeah, 2.6x if you take them. So this is another example of why you should either be a part of my Patreon page. That's where I posted them all first. But in this example was also posted for free on the Bet the Number blog, of why you should be following the Bet the Number blog over there, at least following me on X/Twitter, so that you can see these when they drop, because this is one of the examples of a free slip that I'm posting every single week that you guys could have caught for a slightly better payout here. But I would still even consider entering this maybe for like a half a unit as opposed to a full unit bets with this combination. And here's the idea with the fairways. So they narrowed them down. I know that for sure. It's also going to be a little bit firmer this time around. So I think the average is going to be at most about 9 per round. I think there's a chance it goes down to about 8.5, but I'm citing for closer to a 9 average for round number 1. If the average is going to be about 9 per round, I'll take the under on Rory all day, considering that he's number 167 on tour in the category. I mean, he's one of the lowest of the low when it comes to driving accuracy percentage. So if the average is going to be about 9 per round, just asking him to hit less than that to field average feels like a very reasonable thing to do. So I took him for the under there. He was at even money, so he wasn't with that 0.92x payout, which is where that payout difference is on the slip. And then the other one I took was an over on Justin Rose bogeys. So he's actually juiced a little bit towards the under on sportsbooks. That's just a line that I don't agree with, because the average, if we go back to that, the last time they played here was 1.9 per round. And now you have 2 long ass holes that were par 5s that are now going to be par 4s. They're going to pump that up to at least 2.25 per round, if not closer to 2.5 per round. And when we take a look at the averages for this year, Justin Rose ranks outside the top 150 on tour and bogey avoidance. So, at an elite tier field like this, I mean, this is the top 50 on the PGA Tour. He's a well below average player in that category. So if the average is going to be about this sort of number, also the kind of number that I'm comfortable taking for a fade. So that's where I think some of the value is right now. You can see we didn't take a whole lot of stroke stuff, a whole lot of like birdie props that we're mixing in, because I think that's where it's a little bit more unpredictable. Like, we're expecting it to be firm, but we haven't seen any shots being hit. We're expecting the pin locations to be kind of tricky, but we haven't been able to go through those. They just dropped them, so we'll be able to check them here together now. But these other categories like fairways and then bogeys, the bogeys are more so with the longer shots. Let's add on top of this with the Justin Rose. It's a 7,600 yard par 70. You have, I think, 8 par 4s. It is over 450 yards. Rose, if he has any sort of problems on the PGA Tour, he had none last week. He won. Got to put some respect on his name, right? Maybe he's got the hangover round one that might be able to help us out a little bit, but he's not the longest. He's not the straightest player off the tee. He's a relatively average accuracy player. He's below average with the distance at this stage of his career. So if you put him on a course that's going to play soft with some of the rain that they got this afternoon, at least the fairways, the greens should dry up because they have that sub-air system, but they've got a longer course and it's already long to begin with. That could be a little bit problematic if he's not hitting every fairway. Now, if he can hit fairways and he, has that long iron play dialed in, then I could still see him having at least some kind of success. But at this 2.5 mark, at what I'm expecting the field average to be, I thought it was value to take for the fade side. So I entered those two together. And then a couple other ones I took. These ones ended up bumping 2. So I might actually be able to show you the 4 that I took and then find the 2 that didn't bump that you can take. I took a JT Poston over at 68.5, and now he's at 69.5. So it bumped up an entire stroke. So that was quite a bit of value that we were able to mix in on that one. And then let me look at the Kurt Kitayama fairways line, because I took that for the under. Yeah, he's also at the 0.92x multi. It's wild what Underdog does with my exposure. They, show me, I think, a little bit more respect than they should. I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. I don't just say that. That's just cold, hard facts at this point. There's a reason why these sites limit me like they do. But for them to go and bump every single prop that they take, like not immediately, they were up for a couple hours. A bunch of people entered them before they actually ended up moving that exposure. For the fact they've done it on all but one prop that I've already entered. And the only one they didn't move, by the way, was the Rose one, because that's minus 130 in the other direction, right? That's the only one that was quote unquote negative EV that we've mixed in, but I still think it's value towards the over. I just disagree with the sportsbook line on that one. That's the only one that hasn't moved. So I guess handshake salute to the guys at Underdog, but that's a little crazy that they've gone that overboard with it. Let's go to Prize Picks to see, are any of those ones available? I know the Justin Rose one is, so that it's at 2.5 on both sites, so you can mix it in over there. Let's see, Poston's at the 69 number. So I guess in theory, you'd only get a 2.5x payout though if you took these two together. You could take him at 69 as opposed to the 68.5 number that I ended up mixing in, but I don't know. Like in hindsight, just knowing that I got him at a better number and pretty much for the same payout, like I don't know if I would do it in hindsight. And they don't have the fairway board up. That's obviously where we had the Rory and Kurt Kitayama props that we're mixing in before. But maybe you could go with something like this for your slip for round one. I would keep it light either way. I even went with a 2.5x combo myself, which is a much lower payout than I typically go with for like my 2-man power plays. But I wanted to go on props and leans that I felt pretty solid about. And that's what I'm doing at this point. Fairway fades, some maybe 1 or 2 strokes fades, a few bogey or worse overs as well. That might make sense for some of your marginal players. but I'm not fading your elite tier players. You know, like the field that have like a Victor Hovland at 69 strokes, like I might even take him for an under at that sort of number. Like that's not to say that you only want to be fading players on this kind of slate. It's just that at least for right now, before I see the play tomorrow morning, I'm going to hold off on it. I feel like there's a chance it plays a lot harder than people think, because if we go back to the sportsbook lines and these lines in general, this sentiment agrees with what that guy said in chat, right? The guy in chat is saying like, oh, they're not saying it's looking as hard as what some people were saying, like, oh, it's probably still going to play to like a -20 average. If that's the case, then these sportsbook lines are probably about right, is what I would say, is that they're accounting for that. They're putting in that narrative. And I'm just going to bring this up because this isn't something I'm just like making up, right? This is out of the words of PGA Tour players. And I can show you guys their exact interviews in case you guys weren't able to watch them. We can show you their transcripts. So I can show you that it's not just something that I'm saying. So there's that. And by the way, I never just make shit up. You should know this by now if you guys follow the channel, that it's not something that I do. Let's go through some of the interviews that they've already done this week. So the main one I want to go through here is the Scotty Scheffler one. So Scotty Scheffler, let's zoom in on it. Let's find the one where he asked about the golf course. Right off the bat, okay? And you talk about what it's like to be at Caves Valley. And let me make sure I'm on the right tab, by the way, because I just reshared it. And we are. We're on the right tab. Good to be back at Caves Valley. It was here 4 years ago. Golf course is a little different than it was back then. Golf course is in good shape. They definitely made it significantly harder. Now, let me just zoom in on this. Let me remind you who's saying this, okay? Do we trust Scotty Scheffler, world number one, the best golfer in the world who's played this course and played it 4 years ago, or some slapdick online that wants to generate clicks and wants to generate rage baits based on comments saying that it's just as easy. I saw it play. I could hit that 5-iron from 200 to 5 feet. Fuck my ass, you can. You can do that if in your entire life, my dude. That's why I like laugh at these players and these people and these analysts when they try and say shit like that. Because when you have the world number one saying golf course is in good shape, they definitely made it significantly harder. Well, who are we to believe? I'll believe the players that are actually playing the golf course. So good show should be, and let's finish it. So it should be a good challenge for us this week. Looking forward to getting started tomorrow. And that's pretty much all he says. They ask him a lot of stuff about life because that's what they do with him at this point of the week. Let's go to a few other ones. I think they asked Rory about it. I'm not sure if he gave as good of a quote on it, but let's see. So it says, just talk about the Pro-Am this morning, golf course first impressions. So here we go. Yeah, the golf course, it's a little different than last time. 18 completely new green complexes. The whole golf course is a little drier than it was last time. Again, this is a big factor. The last time they played here, it was poop soft. I think it was lift clean in place for a couple of the rounds. It's not going to be poop soft or lift clean in place. Again, those analysts are just fucking idiots. They literally have no idea what they're talking about. Sorry, got way ahead of myself there. Definitely think it will provide a lot more of a challenge this time around. Okay, now it's world number two saying that. Again, do we believe these guys or some random slapdicks that are online? Like, it's just such an obvious answer. And I appreciate the people in chat trying to be thorough and pointing stuff out, but like, no, it's not helpful. What you're saying is what the sports books want people to hear, right? They want people to be like, oh, this will play easy, -1. That's easy for these like world's best players. It might not be easy if the golf course is really hard. And based on what these players are saying, it feels like that, right? Let's go to Cantlay. So Cantlay didn't get to play as much. So his quote is a lot shorter. But you can see down here, he says, what are your impressions? Does it feel different than what you saw 4 years ago? He says, I've only played 9 holes so far, so I've only seen half the holes. It's much different. And you put it this way, right? He asked if it was different, right? He literally in the question said, is it different than 2021? He said, it's much different. Again, do we believe Cantlay, who won this last time? If anyone would know the damn golf course is the guy who won the fucking golf tournament, right? Or do we trust some slapdick in the YouTube chat? I don't know. I trust the guy who won here last time. He said, and it's in very good shape. Obviously, with it being a 70, that's an easy way to make it play closer to par. So he adds that on top of it too. And again, he only played half of it. So we can't really look at Cantlay as much as some of these other people. But let's go to Ricky. I actually don't recall if Ricky talked about the course, but let's see. Let's see. Have you had a chance to play the course? Let's see. Okay, it's a big place. It's a good walk. Probably best you guys stay in there as much as you can. He's talking to the media members there. It's funny. I guess it's a big walk, meaning like a lot of walk in between the holes. But let's see. He said he plays 18 this morning, so going to be a full day. It's a cool place, cool property. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Stop yapping. Obviously, it's changed since the BMW was here a few pars back, which he was not a part of. Okay, so I guess he wouldn't know. Okay. So that's why I didn't have anything for the rookie. Let's look at Justin Rose. Not sure if he was there 4 years back. I don't think he was. It doesn't look like it. Usually they ask about the course in the first few questions, at least in a majority of these. And I'm just like reading at the question, seeing if he mentions anything about the course. Yeah, so nothing from Rosie. I don't think he was there 4 years before, so they probably knew not to ask about it. Let's go to Xander. Haven't seen anything from Xander's article yet or interview. Can we just get some opening comments on what it's like to be at Caves Valley? Let's see. It's nice to be back here at Caves. Course is obviously very different. So once again, I'll add this for like the 4th time. Do we trust these guys or do we trust the analysts that have never picked up a golf club in their life competitively? I'm sure they've played golf before. If you're working in the golf space, you've obviously have at least some experience behind you, but nothing in the competitive sphere like you have with these sort of players. So yeah, I guess Xander didn't say that much on top of that, or at least not much off the bat that we're going to go through. And let's see, anything else about Caves Valley? Nothing on that one. Something about the 18th hole. He said it's very long. It's got water the whole way up the right. Something about it being hard, but that's not really about the golf course itself. And then, yeah, a whole bunch of Ryder Cup shit, as you would think with him. And let's go to Denny. I'm pretty sure Denny played here 4 years ago. Let's see. He said a home game. Yeah, he's saying it's not a home game. Anything else about the course? Okay, so here it is here. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good challenge this week. Okay, so he's not overblowing it, but he's saying it's going to be at least a little bit harder there. He's only played it here 3 or 4 times. The last time he played here was 8 years ago. And obviously it's a totally new course. Okay, and here's something else, right? And I mentioned this already, but he actually mentions it himself here. They definitely put precision air on the greens, so they're trying to make them a little firmer. Once again, they're trying to add difficulty. They don't want some minus 27 winning score at this. The members, I'm sure, were going crazy. This is a very expensive membership. They're very proud of their golf course, so they don't want to see that sort of a number out there. Even after the change, they don't want minus 20. I can guarantee you that. That's half the reason that they had it. And he'd say they're trying to make them a little firmer, and it seems like they have a lot more slope. That's more difficulty as well. We haven't even mentioned that at this point than what they previously had, and there's a lot more humps and bumps. They lengthened it. We knew about that already. And they took out a couple of the par 5s and added a couple par 4s and stretched out some of the par 3s. I mean, he said, I'm not a super long hitter, but I'm long enough. Your 4, 5, 6 iron, maybe even 5 wood are going to be tested this week. This isn't what you do at an easy golf course, right? You're not getting tested with 5 woods on approaches into par 4s at easy golf courses. So I think that we've gone through it enough. I think you guys get the point. I just want to hammer home that sort of a rant because I don't care who it is. I mean, even me, guys, like I'm not trying to say that like I'm immune to this or anything. That's certainly not the case. But like if you hear it from analysts, anything, like take it with a grain of salt. If they're not in the arena themselves, they're not the ones actually performing week in, week out, they probably don't know shit. And that's myself included. Like I can do the best that I can. I have a lot more experience than most Joe Schmoes in this sphere. That's for sure. Somebody that's been limited on any book that you can think of that's made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars betting on pick'em props. And that's not an exaggeration. It's close to $1 million of profit over the last 5 years that I've generated. I even somebody like me knows my failures and knows that I have my limitations when it comes to breaking down these courses. I'll trust the people on the damn golf course over myself all day. Especially world number 1 Scotty Scheffler, one of the most intellectually advanced athletes in the entire world, not just the world of golf. Guy is so intellectually stimulated. It's just bonkers. It's like he took HGH steroids for his brain. Yeah, if he says it's going to be harder, it's probably going to be harder. So sorry about that rant, guys. Sorry if it got a little snarky at times even, but that's the truth with this golf sphere and a lot of these analysts. 99% of them are just talking out of their ass. And if you want to get the truth, go to the direct primary sources, right? They're not all going to say the same thing by chance. It's not like they're getting paid off by the Caves Valley members to be like, oh, just say that's really, really hard ahead of time. And then when you play it, you know, wink, wink, it's going to be easy. And then you're going to go out there and smash. That's not what's happening here, right? They're not all getting paid off that same narrative. It's because it's actually a harder golf course, if that makes sense. Let's catch up on chat, see what's going on. And we're going to go through those pin locations, by the way, who thank you for letting me know that, by the way. Where we leave off. So do I like Neil Shipley's game? He said, glad that he made it next year. Yeah, I'm glad. And I think he's a high upside player rushing. He's a high birdie percentage guy. He's also a really good iron player, which normally translates well to the PGA Tour. Now, he's got to figure out the putter. That has been really hit or miss for him. It's why on the Corn Ferry Tour, he's been such, he's either top 5 or missed cut seemingly on the Corn Ferry Tour. But if he could be a little bit more consistent, that would be nice. Do I like Ben Griffin this week? I kind of like him this week, Jonathan. He's not one of my favorite plays, though. You're looking at a top 10. That would be the good market for him. Maybe like a top 15, top 20, depending on what sports book you're at. Yeah, I'm not sure he wins, but I think a top 10 or that kind of market would make a lot more sense. He said RotoWire is by far the worst for everything. They should just stay paying us to use their projections. Yeah, I actually didn't even look at RotoWire, man. I'm surprised they even do their projections anymore. I don't want to talk too much shit about people, but it's true, man. It's crazy what they've done out there at these projections. Will there be an interaction with the newest greens with the sub-air system and greens regulation? I think so, sites. So in general, I think it's going to go down because of the 2 par 5s being par 4s. So, I mean, that could be a half to maybe even like 0.7 to a green difference on those 2 holes alone. It's going to be narrower fairways, right? So you're going to have more shots coming out of the rough. That's also going to lower that average sub-air system on top of that. And that's why I think it's nonsense. The people saying that it's going to play like the same is like, no, it's not. You've got all these things going on. The players saying otherwise. It's, I don't know. It makes me second guess myself for like half a second when I get comments like that. And then I realize that it's just some Joe Schmo that doesn't know what they're talking about. Jonathan says, Xander lower on fairways instead of Rory. Similar ranking and accuracy, but it's even money. That was one I was looking at, Jonathan. So yeah, now that they've moved it to the 0.92x, I'm okay with that one. I think that it's like the reason why I went with Rory is if you look at their form with their accuracy, I think Rory's lost accuracy in like 7 straight events or something like that. I think he had like 1 event over his last 10 where he's gained accuracy to the field. Xander has lost, I think, like 6 of his last 7 events. It's still like most of them or something like that. But the one that he gained was at the Genesis Scottish Open, and he gained like 14% accuracy that week, which is like elite level stuff. It's like 80%, 85% fairway rate that he had at that golf course. That data point was enough to scare me off and go to the Rory McIlroy instead. But everything that you said with there, the similar ranking and accuracy, same kind of projection is why I was considering those 2. So yeah, now that one has moved and one hasn't, I would side towards the Xander side. So to go back to that one, guys, if you guys want to get a 2.85x payout instead, go to Xander. We look at that one under, and then we go to the Justin Rose one as well. You could take that for 2.85x. So that actually might be the better way to go about it. So shout out to you and Chapman for helping find that. You like Pendrith this week, above average driver, and has the potential to roll in some putts. Which you think is the 2 biggest factors? I would agree with you on that one. What market would I play him in? I like him in DFS, Noah. Now, I think the ownership's going to kind of be there, so it's not like I think he's a steal or anything like that. That's at least personally where I'm investing in him. If you were going to do it like in the betting market, maybe a birdie or better prop, like because I think that the putter is going to help you convert on some of those. Length is going to help you on those longer par 5s as well. So maybe a birdie or better, maybe a top 10 if you're looking for like a placement kind of bets. But yeah, DFS is where I'm using them myself. Tourcast on the PGA website has the hole-by-hole and course layout. Yeah, I was able to see that myself too. In fact, we're going to use that. Thank you for reminding me. We're going to use that to go through the hole locations together. So not only we can look at where they're at, but we'll be able to see the slopes as well. I was going through the Tourcast yesterday just to see the kind of sloping on the greens, and it's severe. It's also one of the more uniquely contoured courses that I've ever seen. And you guys are going to get to see this here in a second when we go hole by hole. But like the amount of like random small shelves that you have on these greens is amazing. It's unlike anything I've really ever seen before. So it's a good thing that we'll be able to go through this. And we'll get back to your questions in a second, guys. But I do want to go through these pin locations just to make sure that they're not all in bowls or anything, right? I guess that'd be a good thing to check on before we go any further. So hole 1's a front pin. It is, look at this, 480-yard par 4. So even though the pin location is probably a little bit easier, at least on paper, it's still going to be a pretty brutal start, right? 500-yard par 4 for your first hole. Normally, it's like 400 yards to start. But something to note about this green, and this was one of the ones where you've got a couple things going on that are weird for it. This is another reason why the golf course might be harder than people think, is you got this knob in the middle left. You guys can see that high spot right there, right? You've got some slope going to the right of it, also some slope going to the left of it, and some slope going over it. That's not something we always see at courses. Normally it'll be like little contours in the green, but not like a big high spot, like almost like a little mountain in the middle. And they're not going to put the pin on that, I wouldn't think. I mean, maybe they will. If they do, it would be diabolical if they put it up on that volcano pin location. But what it does is that if you're trying to get up and down, or you're trying to putt from like the other side of the green, it adds so much more difficulty to your read, because not only do you have to read the very end of it, which is what, like, I don't know, 90% of a read is, right? He's looking at what it's going to do the last 3 to 5 feet, because that's where the ball has a chance to actually go in the hole. But the first half of the read now becomes really tricky, especially let's say if it's like a, I don't know, like a pin to this middle left corner and you're on this front right, you have to like putt over that knob and negotiate it, right? And if you miss just a little bit right, that slope's going to take you into this bottom right bowl. So you can see where this golf course, I think, is sneaky hard on the greens. And I've heard a few players mention that. But here's the other thing too. It slopes from front to back. And the last time we saw this was at Oakmont Country Club. And if you remember, it was holes 1 in 10. You might not. You're not a sicko like me, most of you out there that are looking at every hole and know all the contours of the greens like the back of your hands. But 1 in 10 at Oakmont sit like this. If you remember, they've got the big hills that go down. I mean, I was there this year, so I have a little bit of a better mental picture than most, I would imagine. But they're sitting like this. This green, as you can see, it slopes from the very front to the very back, which means with this front pin location, if you land it on the front, especially if you're coming out of the rough, you're going to end up on the very back here. So it looks like an easy pin location, and it might be accessible from the fairway, especially with the fact that it rained today. Like, it's going to give them at least a chance if they hit a really good iron shot. But unless you're in the fairway and you hit the absolute perfect nutted shot, you're not getting close to that pin location. So that's what I want to note about these greens. And we're not going to spend nearly as much time as what we did here, but the greens have that kind of nuance to them, which we just normally don't see. It's, in my opinion, some of the hardest greens that we've ever seen on this Tourcast before. And it's not just that one, by the way. Like, they're almost all like that. Let's go to hole 2. So 2 is in the middle right. So that's about right here. It is below a little bit of a slope. So this one, I would say, would be like a 4 out of 10 difficulty, maybe slightly easier than most, but this is a pretty narrow portion of the green. Like, if it was on this back little shelf, it would be back on the back shelf, the back part of the cookie jar, right? The back part of the pantry, I should say, up where your mom used to hide the cookies. So you couldn't go out there and just gorge them all down. However, it is a wider part of the green back there. So I don't know. Yeah, like a 4 out of 10, I would say, for the difficulty on that one. Really not that hard. Let's go to 3 next. So 3 is on the front right side. This is a par 3. I would say that this is also one of the easier pin locations that they can use on this hole, but look how narrow that thing is. By the way, they don't have green regulation boards posted on these sites, but that was something I was really trying to look at, was on a site like Draftkings, Underdog, FanDuel, whatever the case, Prize Picks, Underdog. I was hoping to be able to take guys for unders at like 12.5, but they didn't even give a selection for those, I guess, because they're not sure how it's going to play. But with how narrow these are, and the not lift clean in place, and the precision air system, like, they're going to be bouncier than you'd expect. So this hole is going to be a little bit harder than you might think. Let's go to 4 next. 4 is a middle left pin location. So I would say so far that these pin locations could be harder. Like, they're actually not so bad so far. But this front left pin location is, I would say, like a 4 out of 10, maybe a 3.5 out of 10. Probably the easiest or second easiest pin that you have there. It'll probably get harder at some point, so let's keep going with it. So 5, for example, looks like a harder one. This hole, by the way, this hole. This is going to be one of the best holes of the week to watch as a spectator. So Smiley Kaufman actually walked through this one earlier this week and was able to give people an idea. So it's 367. They've already talked about moving it up to make it drivable. But Smiley Kaufman was saying this. He's not sure very many people are going to go for it, because this is a penalty area down here. Down in this little area to the left. And by the way, it is only like a yard off. It's not like what's the word for it? An illusion. It's not like it's misleading and it looks like it's, closer than it is. It's literally like a yard off the left side of this green, and you're in a hazard where it's a lost ball. I mean, he threw a ball down there and it looks like you would find it maybe 50% of the time. So if you go for it off the tee, your only chance at really hitting this green is, he said, if you're in one of these greenside bunkers. He said if you could hit it into one of these greenside bunkers, then you could hit a splash shot and then easily get up and down for a birdie. But he said if you missed anywhere else, and he said it was impossible to hold this fairway over here. He said at least if it's not super soft, it was going to be hard to do that. That the chip shot is just so difficult with how narrow this is that you're almost laying up with your second shot. Like, if you missed in the rough over here towards the right, you'd almost have to like lay up in a spot where you could get up and down for par with your third and fourth shot. So 5 in this very back right quarter is probably the hardest pin location. You can see here as well, everything slopes from the front to the back, which makes it even harder on that sort of a hole. Let's go to the next hole. So this is 6. So 6 is a back left pin location. So it's going to play probably 230 yards, and it's up on a shelf. So yeah, as expected, the harder pin locations are coming in hot. Let's go to 7 next. So 7 is also a back pin location on a medium length par 4. So it's about right here. It actually doesn't look too terrible, but it's probably harder than the pin location that's on that front right. So we'll call that one like a 5.5, maybe a 6 out of 10 difficulty. Let's go to the next one next. So next we have 8, which is tucked on this left side. This is a long iron in. It's a long par 4, probably going to play about 485 towards his middle to back left pin location. And it's also tucked over those bunkers. So that's like a 7.5, 8 out of 10. That's a spicy pin location right there. 9 is going to be just over the front bunker. So let's go to that hole next. Also a long par 4. So the fact that it's tucked just over the front is not advantageous. It's hard to stop a long iron shot when you're coming in from 200 yards. And, you know, unless you had a perfect drive, you're probably going to have about 200 yards into hole number 9. Coming out of the rough, I mean, forget it. You're not going to get close to that pin location, even if you hit a perfect shot. Next up, you have 10, which is on the front left. This one doesn't look as bad, and yeah, that's probably the easiest pin that you get at 10. So they're giving a player a few bones, which makes sense. 11 looks drivable, but it's not because of the water. So it is an easier pin location, but this is going to be a layup and a wedge hole for just about everyone. I mean, to go for it, you'd have to carry it 330, which would require you to have a wind behind you. So don't expect people to go for that one off the tee very often, if at all. Next up, we have 12, which is in the very back middle. This is also a long par 4. This is probably one of the harder pin locations on this hole, but it is in the middle. It is a longer shot in, but you at least have a lot of left to right movement to work with there. Let's go to 13 next. So 13 is a back left pin location, more like middle left, about where I am right now. That's probably the hardest pin location on this hole because it really brings that water into play. So yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot of birdie opportunities, if I'm being honest with you guys. 14 is a back pin in this very back corner. It is on the low spot. Back right would be harder than back left, but it is going to be a longer shot in. Probably going to play like 485 as well, almost 490 yards to that very back corner. Next up, we have 15, which is a front right pin. This looks easier, but it is a harder hole. It is on a low area, so yeah, perhaps the easiest pin location at 15, but still long, hard par 4. And I don't really get how people thought it was going to be easier. I mean, look at all these like 500-yard par 4s. Like it's brutal. If you play like Justin Rose and you're missing fairways, like you're just fucked. 16 is a middle left pin location, about where I am right now. I wouldn't say it's like the hardest pin or anything, but this front right is going to be infinitely easier than just tucked over those bunkers. You can still get up and down over there, but a little bit more difficulty around the green. Let's go to 17. So 17 is a middle right pin location. Look at that 245-yard par 3 with water on the right and tucked near the water. I've seen this now, and I think it's going to play even harder than I thought. I mean, like all these shots are 200 plus yards, and I know it's going to be a little softer, but like that's just going to make it play longer off the tee. Like these guys, if you're not hitting the ball 300 plus through the air, like forget it. And I found the 18's a back left pin location. So here's what I'm thinking it's going to happen, guys. You're going to see people tomorrow that are like -3 through 4 or 5 holes. Maybe through 4 holes, you get some like -2, some -3s. Would be the better way to put it, because these pin locations are pretty easy, especially the first 3. Heck, even the first 4, I'd say, are the easiest pin locations of the day. But as soon as you get past hole 4, all hell unleashes. That's where those longer par 4s come in. That's where the harder pin locations start to get mixed in after hole number 5. So expect to see some overreactions after the first few groups go through, of people going like, oh, this course isn't so bad. When you have like, I don't know, JT Poston, for example, who I bet against, like -3 through 4 holes. If that happens, I'll be sweating a little bit. I'm not going to be the happiest camper because the guy I faded is playing a little bit better than I would have hoped. But I'll know that coming down the stretch, the rest of the golf course, it's going to be really tough sledding, and he's going to be far from home at that sort of number. So that's how this golf course is going to play. And going back to the averages from before, I mean, we already know they're going to play infinitely harder than 2021, but I honestly think these pin locations are harder than I expected. They kind of had us in the first few. I was like, oh, kind of rolling my eyes through the first 4 holes. I was like, oh, shit. Like, are they really just going to make it the easiest pin locations that I've ever seen? But they quickly corrected that, and they did it in a hurry over the last 12 holes or so. So I think it looks like a fun setup, pretty much like I was expecting, maybe even slightly more difficult, which makes me feel a little bit better about some of the leans that we've mixed in. So for every single prop that I'm entering for round number 1, guys, you guys can find that on my Patreon page. That's where all the live props that I enter tomorrow morning are going to be posted, as well as everything as I enter them for these slates. So for example, the Rory prop moved before the Kurt Kitayama one as well to that 0.92x. If you guys want to enter those before any of that sort of line movement, that's the place to go ahead and catch all of those sort of slips. But the last thing I want to go through before we open it up to any last second questions and get on out of here is going to be the one matchup bet that I've already placed. So let's find Ben Griffin. I know we had a question about Ben Griffin before. This is the market that I played him in. So I played him at plus 100 versus Russell Henley. And if we go to the bet the number matchup tool, which I'll do right now because this is a stream sponsored by Bet the Number. So we definitely want to show off this matchup tool and all the great stuff that it's capable of. But this is something that I'm always using for these matchups. I mean, whether it's during play or before an event, I think it's the absolute nuts to use this. So let's compare Ben Griffin and Russell Henley over their last 24 rounds. Russell Henley's been playing really good. I mean, in fact, he's probably top 15 in form in the field. But if you look at the regular shots gained categories, your core four over the last 24 rounds, Ben Griffin beats him in every category but around the green. He beats him with the putter, the approach play, the off the tee play. And those are the most important categories. In fact, around the green, the chipping, right, holding out for birdies with your chip shots and whatnot is almost complete luck. So the fact that Russell Henley is leading in that one specific category really doesn't mean that much to me. And also considering that this is a course where driving distance means a little bit more than driving accuracy is also why I would favor a Ben Griffin between those two. So that's why I like him at plus 100. You're able to get that on Hard Rock Bet. I think he's at plus 100 on FanDuel as well. So if you can get that same sort of number, I would unload a full unit bet on that one. But that's also the only matchup that I've entered at this point. And part of the reason for that is I'm going to see if the driving distance is as big of a factor as a lot of people were saying. And I'm going to see how difficult or easy it is. You know, if it's going to play a super difficult golf course, like I kind of think is, you know, what I'm shading towards as of right now, then I want grinders. I want like your Hideki Matsuyamas. I want your Justin Thomases with a really good short game. And I want to fade guys that have a really poor short game if that's going to be the case. If maybe I'm wrong and it plays a little bit easier, that is certainly a possibility as well. Well, then I want to be taking guys that are good scorers, like maybe a Johnny Vegas, your more aggressive players that have high birdie or better percentages rather than more of your grinder mindset if it plays harder. So I'm just sticking to the shots gained poppers, the really big misprices as of right now. But after we get some of the information tomorrow morning, it can help us with some of the later two balls that are still yet to tee off. And of course, with these pick'em sites as well. And, you know, my working scoring average, at least for like what I'm expecting tomorrow, is between minus 0.5 to plus 0.5. That's kind of the range that I'm expecting for round number one. If it plays easier or harder than that kind of range, is where you're going to see me adding slips tomorrow. If it ends up with that minus 0.5 to plus 0.5 range, there's a good chance that I don't end up adding anything to my portfolio. So it's all going to be dependent on whether there's some actual value to attack. And you've got to be quick about it too. That's the thing with these sports books is they're getting better over time at adjusting to them. There was a time and place where these sports books would set their lines and then not adjust them whatsoever for the play in the morning. Now, after they get some of the averages coming in, they will start to adjust them in one direction or the other. But if you're quick to it, you do it before they start to make those kind of changes. You can oftentimes find a lot of line value on not just the pick'em sites like Underdog Prize Picks, but also sites like Draftkings and FanDuel that offer strokes, birdies are better, bogeys are worse, et cetera, et cetera. They're usually pretty safe about it. Like they like to really see a lot of data on the golf course before they make changes, which means, you know, if you've got the whole first 9 holes loaded in for like 1 or 2 groups, if you act then before they get through like their next 3 to 4 holes, you can catch lines before that kind of movement. So that's what we do on the Patreon page. That's normally when we time that kind of exposure. So check that out tomorrow morning if you guys want to see the rest of my lineups. But that's all I've got, guys. Going to catch it up with the questions and the sort of deep dives that you've got for me in the chat. So if there's any bets that we haven't gone through quite yet that you guys are curious about, feel free to let me know. This can be on the pick'em apps. Those can be matchups. I'll be willing to give you guys my 2 cents on those as well, or even process-based questions as well. We'll be willing to go through those. So just let me know, and let's figure out where we last left off. So favorite outright this week is favorite 72-hole matchup plays. So I haven't entered any 72-hole matchups, so not really anything I can give you there. But for my outrights, I did enter an outright on O'Bear, Victor Hovland, Robert McIntyre, and Mav McNeely. Don't really have a favorite out of those 4, Noah. I like all 4 of them pretty much the same, but maybe pick one of those 4 and you can try and tail it yourself. But yeah, it's like I said, O'Bear, Hovland, McIntyre, and McNeely that I bet for outrights. You're looking at Russell Henley for the over at 3.5 birdies, above average greens, and then birdie or better percentage player as well. So yeah, I'm not sure on the birdie or better overs, man. If anything, I was looking at some 3.5s for unders for some potential value. Now, not Russell Henley. Henley would definitely not be a player that I would be line shopping for that. More so like your Nick Taylors of the world, your average to below average birdie makers on the PGA Tour. They're at 3.5. But yeah, Henley's a good course fit this week. I don't know if I'm going to be tailing you on that sort of thing until I see how the golf course plays, but Henley would be towards the top of my short list if I was trying to find some value for that. You said you're looking at Ricky Fowler for the under on strokes too. So if it's going to be between the minus 0.5 to plus 0.5 scoring average, he would be an okay play for the under if it plays minus 0.5, but not so much if it's playing plus 0.5, or if it's playing 0.5 over par and he has to gain a stroke and a half to the field to go under. I don't feel as good about it as him only having to gain a half a stroke to the field. So that's personally why I'm trying to stay away from some of like the positive stance plays at this point, because I feel better about the fade value. Like for example, posting at 68.5, even if it plays as easy as I think it possibly can, like minus 0.5, hell, we'll go to -1. I'll just push it even past where I think is reasonable. We'll go to -1 for a scoring average. If that's the case, Poston has to gain a whole stroke to the field to cover that. Poston is like an average player at best in this kind of field. And that's not a diss when you're talking about the top 50 players in the world, right? Like top 50 in the world is really damn good for a professional golfer. And he's probably close to like number 35 to 40, probably closer to 40 for JT Poston. If that's the case and the average is going to be -1, he projects for around that, if not slightly worse than that field average. That's why I think the fade value is the way to go about it right now, man, because even in the worst possible case scenario, it would still be value. Whereas if we're taking positive stance plays, like for example, there with Ricky Fowler, and things don't go your way, it plays 0.5 over par, like I think is possible, then you're behind the 8 ball. You need your guy to go out there and ball out, gain a stroke and a half, 2 strokes to the field to cover that kind of line, which for a player like Ricky Fowler in this kind of field, he's at best about an average player in the top 50 players of the world. In fact, some people would say that he's a below average player in this sort of field. That's why I don't think it's the best prop to take. So I would be a little bit careful about those ones, man. And it was the same thing last Sunday. We had a lot of questions from chat about unders on strokes, overs on birdies last Sunday. And I told you guys, Sunday pin locations, things normally get a little bit harder for the last day of action. And what happened, right? It played over par that Sunday. And I know I was a little snarky that Sunday too. I was really tired. So I was just kind of wasn't having it from some of the people in chat where I was saying to enter fades and they were asking about positive stance plays. But there's a reason why I give you that pushback, right? It's not for no reason. It's that I considered a lot of those things myself. I go through the board, look at the positive and the negative stance side of things, and there's just a lot that could go wrong if you go in the positive stance direction. So that's personally why I'm going the other way on that. You really wish Pick'em was legal in Ohio? For sure. Some states have the Pick'em, some states have the sportsbook line odds. I will have to say, sites, I'm not sure what Ohio has. If they have the actual sportsbook lines, those are even better than the Pick'em ones, because if I could bet straights all day, I 100% would. I actually can't down here in Florida, even though we have the sportsbook. Our Hard Rock Bet, we don't have the lines for like strokes and birdies on it. So yeah, if you're in a sportsbook state, that's also pretty sweet as well. He said, course looks tight for driving. For sure, they did tighten it up as well. He said, no coach speak on pro golfers, no reason to lie. Exactly. And yeah, that's going back to the interviews we were going through. They have no reason to lead us the wrong direction. So I'm right with you on that one, man. He said, thanks for the candor. You're going to look for playing against some money moves for props. Yeah, man, I think fades is the way to go about it. And I got to say, you've got the best name in chat, that's for sure. Maui is one of the places that I hold the closest to heart out of anywhere. I went there twice as a young child. My family owned a motorcycle business growing up. And as a part of Honda's a company that has a lot of ties to Hawaii. It's halfway between there and Japan. So a lot of people, they do a lot of their business meetings in Hawaii for that reason. And I got to go to Maui twice as a child off the company dime. And it was probably some of my best memories in life being able to visit Maui. So shout out to you, man. I'm not sure if you're out there right now currently, but I can't think of a better place on earth. That is absolute heaven out there. Do I like Jason Day worse than the top 20? You got it at even odds. So I don't really know what I think about that, man. I'm not somebody that really has that sort of like top 10, top 20 stuff, just like off minded. I have to look at my projections really to give you a straight answer on that. But worse than top 20, I mean, to finish in the top 20, you're talking about the top 40% of this field. So at even money odds, that feels pretty reasonable, right? Because he's probably about an average player in this field. That seems reasonable for Jason Day. I would say if you got plus 100 odds, that's a decent lean. I'm not sure if it's massive value. I'd have to double check my projections before I give you a solid answer, but Seems decent. Thoughts on the Rose Spawn matchup? And you saw that Rose was plus 115 on hard rock bet with no tie. So yeah, between those two players, I mean, I think Rose is going to come down to earth a bit. So I think he should be the underdog between those two. And I mean, Spawn's been playing better golf as well. So I don't disagree with that one, man. I think that Rose probably should be the underdog between those two. What's going on, Susumu? He said, hope everything's well. It is. Likewise to you, my man. And or my lady, I'm not sure who it is. My bad. I shouldn't assume, I guess. He said, just wanted to pop in and say hello and good luck. You as well. I hope that you hit out on all your props, all your bets and whatnot. And even if you're just enjoying the golf, I hope that goes well as well. This course already seems worse than the Oakmont already. It's not going to be quite that hard, but Oakmont was a whole lot of fun. That's for damn sure. Please, thoughts on playing tournament matchups versus round one. So you have to tell me which matchups you're talking about. If you just mean in general, matchups can make a lot of sense at times. He said, sorry, you're just coming in now. Not sure if I've already answered this. It's okay if I already have. He said, thoughts on Hall as well as Pendrith for DFS. So yeah, DFS-wise, Pendrith, I like as a value play, but he is getting a little bit of ownership. I'm not talking like 25, 30% ownership, but I've got him close to 15%. So if you're going to use him, just know that. I'm personally okay with it. I'm still using him in a few lineups. And Harry Hall, the same thing. Harry Hall's not as cheap as Pendrith, a little bit more towards the middle end of that pricing, but he's popular because he's got some of the more consistent form in that range. So both players are people that I'd have to grade out at least like a 5.5, a 6 out of 10. And especially with Pendrith, that is so cheap, that makes him an almost automatic play for me. So no real pushback on those. And he's also big on Kitayama. Yeah, the thing with Kitayama that I will say is different than those other two players. Really good form, if not even better form than those two players. But everyone's playing Kitayama this week. I mean, Kitayama, I've got it close to 20% projected ownership. I think in single entries, he could be 25 to 30% projected owns. Just be a little careful about that. And you can get different elsewhere, right? It's not who you play, it's how you play them. You could always mix in somebody like Kitayama, then get different at one of your other 5 to 6 spots. But just be very intentional about that. If you're going to use somebody that everyone else in the GPPs are using, then you're going to have to find your lane elsewhere, right, to get towards the top end of the board. So give this man a like and subscribe. Novig app has some pretty crazy odds on golf. Yeah, I've got to look at Novig, man. I haven't joined quite yet 3B, but I've heard some decent things about them, especially with the fact that people are posting odds that are just drastically off compared to what you can find elsewhere. So I'll have to look at that. And yeah, I appreciate that, man. Smash that like button if you guys haven't already. He said, heard you're biased since Ricky's your favorite golfer. Yeah, me too, man. I mean, I'm like that way with Jordan Spieth. In fact, I used to bet Jordan Spieth over on birdies like every time he teed it up. Same thing with Justin Thomas. I've grown out of that. I don't do that anymore. I only bet on my guy Jordan when it makes sense at this point. And even then, I mean, my Patreon members know this at this point, is I'll put the Spieth tag on it. I'll put an asterisk and I'll say, I am also a very big Jordan Spieth fan. So I may give him more credit than I should. Like I literally explicitly say that when I take Jordan Spieth props, but I do only take it at this point when it makes sense. But it's tough, man. We always want to root for our favorite golfers, right? It's like our favorite football team out there. Is it Shane Lowry for the bounce back week? I think so. I'm giving him a chance at least. I don't know if I'd count on it just because the form, he fell off a bit, right? That's what happened when he had that dud the last time out. But he's also a decent course fit. I mean, he plays well at harder tracks, and them taking it from the 72 to the par 70, I think is going to help guys like Shane Lowry. I'd rather have your grinders this week than the guys that are going to shoot like minus 20, minus 25. So yeah, give me some Shane Lowry for a bounce back, but do it in the right format, I would say, right? Like, I don't know if I love him for a top 10 bet because like the odds on him, they're probably about right, I would say. I'd have to guess on a Shane Lowry. But if you're looking at DFS where you can get him at low ownership, you're playing against the rest of the field, like maybe that's the good way to do so, where if he's going to go off and you're going to get that sort of performance, you're at least going to pay off and not share him with 25% of the field. That's probably what I would do. He said Maverick over 69. Oh, I don't know. Maverick is like one of my babies this week. I don't know if you saw my content, but I bet Maverick to win. I don't know if I could take a stance against him. I will say, though, of these guys at 69, like the Victor's one I could see for an under. He's also a guy I bet. So like he's somebody I would not bet against at 69. But there's a lot of them at 69 I would fade. Like a Harris English. Like that's somebody I would lean on the over on. A McCarthy, a Siwoo Kim, even like a Burns, even like even like a Corey Connors, a Justin Rose, I'd be leaning on towards the over. So that's the hesitation on that one, I guess, is that I feel like there's better players to fade, but out of principle, I don't think it's the worst thing I've ever seen. Like fades on a golf course that's going to play harder are normally a good idea. And he says Shane bounced back, but you were thinking Shane for the over on bogeys. Here's the difference, right? So it depends on the format. Like on a 50-50 format, like a prop bet, totally different than DFS, because in DFS, half the utility of playing a guy like that is that no one else is going to use them. Because when they go off, you share them with, let's say, like 5 to 7% of the field, you're going to just vault up past everyone else's lineups, right? And it's hard to really explain that if you don't play DFS as much, and like if you're not playing into large held GPPs, exactly what I mean by that. But like on a prop basis, 50-50 basis, I'd still be totally fine with a fade, because the fact of the matter is he did not play well the last time out. His form is worse than a lot of the other guys around him. And for bogey avoidance this year, he's not ranking out nearly as well as what he did the year before that. So I wouldn't be against that one, dude. Just because I think he's a decent DFS play doesn't exclude him from a fade on that sort of market. And he said any value on the whole 10 through 18 ones. He said 1 through 9 is all juiced. Nah, man. I think that what they do on sites like Underdog that posts the 1 through 9 and 10 through 18 is 99% of the time they add up to the same number that you have for strokes. So if there's value on the strokes lines, that's going to translate to, those other two categories. Where you can find value, in my opinion, on those sort of markets is after play starts. If you notice that one of the two nines is playing either really easy or really hard compared to what they expected before, then you attack it. But ahead of time, no, man, there's not really value on those sort of markets, right? It's the same as the strokes 99% of the time. More so the kind of thing that you react to afterwards. So hopefully that helps you out with that one. And that is something that I'll be looking at tomorrow morning, for example. Like if we see that the front nine is playing under par, which those first 4 holes look easy. So maybe this is what happens, right? Like the front nine plays easier than the back nine. You can almost take unders on the front and then overs for the back nine and mix them together and get boosted payouts that way, right? Because they're almost anti-correlating, right? You're getting the over and the under at the same time. And then you're taking advantage of the course setup. So that's what I would do for like those sort of props, is see exactly how the golf course is playing. And then, I mean, if it works out the right way, maybe both sides plays hard, right? And then you can't really do the correlation. But sometimes it works out where like one side's way easier, one side's way harder. Then you can find some value that way. But that's all I've got, guys. Going to go ahead and cut it off there. It's been a long week of analysis, but super stoked to hop into all of our exposure this week. Best of luck with everything that you guys are entering yourself. Check out the Patreon page for all the exposure that I'm entering, not just for round 1, but also for rounds 2 through 4. I'll be posting all of that over there for my Patreon members. And we'll be doing live streams here on the YouTube channel as well. So if you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you go ahead and do so as well. Just like we did here for round 1, where we go through the pin locations, averages, what to expect for the very next day. We're going to be doing the same thing for Friday through Sunday. So subscribe so you guys don't miss any of those when we go live. And normally maybe about like 2 hours after play ends is when we go live for those live streams. So stop on by. I'll be looking forward to seeing your faces in the live chat over the next few days. And let's have ourselves a round 1 at the BMW.